Welcome to the Legal Interview Project. The Legal Interview Project's aim is to create a repository of materials for teens interested in law so they understand how to get there. Today I'm joined by Alexis Kane, JD candidate at UNT Law. How's it going, Alexis?
Good, how are you?
Doing great. Run us through, you're at UNT Law. What's that experience like? What year are you? What is the class schedule?
Yeah, sure. I am going into my 3L year,
Mhm.
kind of like senior year of law school, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so my schedule varies semester to semester. This coming semester, my 3L year, I will have um three classes on Monday and Wednesday. And I'll do business associations, commercial law, kind of going more business focused this semester. And then I'm doing my moot court
Yeah.
advocacy. So I made the external moot court team. So we have that on Mondays and Wednesdays as well. So I'll be prepping for my moot court competition in Chicago this year. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I will have one class, and that's bar prep. And
Mhm.
then, which is kind of different from other law schools, UNT starts bar prep like as a class required, starting your beginning of your 3L year. And it's been really helpful. I've heard a lot of positive feedback, so I'm excited about it to get some review in early.
Yeah.
Um, and then I will have almost my entire morning. So bar prep is at night. And so all of Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I will be doing my externship. So I'll actually be working. Well, I'm an oddball. I actually work two jobs. I work at a law firm. And then I also will be working as general counsel for DISD.
Whoa, that's very cool. What's DIXD?
Dallas Independent School District.
Just on that moot court point, do you have any
Sure.
tips for moot court?
My tip for you to actually, when you're doing it, um, breathe. I know a lot of people want to get their answers out there. They have their, paperwork in front of them. You want to get everything out as fast as possible, as soon as possible. But actually listen to what the judge is asking you. Always answer the question first before you go on your rant. I know we all like to hear ourselves talk. It's why we're gonna, be really good speakers and advocate for people. But answer first, right? You have a lot to say. So say yes, Your Honor, or no, Your Honor. Or it depends, which is our favorite answer, right? And then go into your explanation before you start. And then, yeah, just breathe. You're allowed to pause and take your time. I know some moot court competitions are timed, but I promise you can talk really fast if you really need to, if you run out of time, but more likely than not, you're not going to.
Going back to your current jobs, you work at a law firm and then you also work as general counsel, or you're going to work as
It
counsel?
will.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to have no free time. And so I worked all throughout the school year here at the firm. And then I will also be clerking for a judge starting in about 3 weeks. So again, no free time, but
Congrats.
it's really cool. Thanks. My day to day at the firm is I get here and I check all of my docket. So I look at what cases I'm being given. If anyone's emailed me, likely they have. And it's a mid-sized firm. So
Mhm.
we're about seven attorneys. And then I actually have my supervised bar card. So I took my first deposition yesterday. I have a supervising attorney. So I do all of the things that an attorney would do. I just have a buddy that goes with me.
Oh wow,
Um,
so you're like the guy in Suits, you're like Mike. Like,
yes, I'm
yeah.
Mike. Exactly.
Very
So
cool.
I
So you
get
just had
here.
your first deposition
I
yesterday?
did.
How
Yep.
was that?
It was good. I was told I crushed it. I don't remember some of it because I think I blacked out a little, which is normal.
Yeah.
But I used a lot of the skills actually that I used in moot court because it's really, there's no judge to rule on objections. And so you have to kind of take what the attorney is saying and you can ask for clarity on their objection, but really you just have to kind of be with whoever you're deposing. And keep their attention, which means pausing if you need to pause, everything is on the record. So if you say or ah, it's going to be in the record because they have to type exactly what you're saying. So making sure that you're pausing when you need to, or you have the time in a deposition, you have 6 hours because it was in federal court. So if you don't understand what they're saying, physically draw it out. You're allowed to have notes because you're the attorney that they can't, right? But you can. So it was in a car wreck and they were talking about where they thought the wreck occurred and it wasn't making sense to me. So I physically stopped and I was like, give me 2 minutes. And I drew out the scene as they said it. Then I looked at what the police report said, and there was a huge discrepancy. So I was like, why don't you take this and you draw how you saw the scene? Um, and it didn't make sense. So I ended up looking at their interrogatories and I impeached the witness. And I was like, so were you in the right lane? Because right now you're saying you're in the left lane. And which one was it? Because you can't be in two places at once. So it was kind of cool. Yeah.
That sounds really cool. Yeah. And then when you impeached the witness, what was the response? Like, what did your supervising attorney think?
So we got to speak afterwards. They were laughing that I caught on to it and that the person kind of looked like a deer in headlights. I don't think I'm a super intimidating person, but I can be when I need to be. And so I was like, so which one is it? And they were, trying to avoid the question. Um, so I objected to non-responsiveness and I asked again. I said, please answer my question, right or left. You can't have both. So their response, they finally responded. They asked if they could take a break. And I said, you can have, 5 minutes. We went off the record for 5 minutes. They came back in and I thanked the court reporter for being there, asked how they were doing. Did you get some water? And then I went at it again. They try defense attorneys, because we're plaintiffs, um, will try to ruin your rhythm by making miscellaneous objections also.
Yeah.
And there were some objections that he made that weren't correct. And me being still a law student, um, I was like, that's not in the rules of evidence. And so it would kind of stop me in my tracks, and I would think about which objection it would be. And when it didn't exist, I looked at him and I said, sidebar, hey, that's not a valid objection. Either object properly, or I'm happy to wait for the judge to, get a phone call and we can talk about this later. And then that stopped him from, messing with me again. He was kind of an older man, and I think that he saw a younger woman and thought that it was kind of fun to like mess up,
Yeah. So there
you know,
wasn't like it just didn't exist, the
it
objection.
did not exist. No, it was not even relevant. And I did
Okay.
say on the record, and my boss said that he wanted to print it out for me, which I thought was funny. They want to frame it. I said, "You're older than me, so you should know that that doesn't exist."
Yeah.
A little sassy there, which you're allowed to be. So yeah.
That sounds great. I mean, as a woman getting into law, do you find that like people treat you differently than if you were a man? Like, do you find that to be something relevant or just in this one case?
I didn't I used to not think that it
Yeah.
was relevant. I was going to be a teacher. So like my background has nothing to do with law. I never thought that I was going to be an attorney. I love kids. And I left teaching because it of the administration. It had nothing to do with the children. So I left a really female matriarchal field to this whole like patriarchal, male dominated field. And I didn't go into it thinking that it would be any different. It really is, unfortunately. It sometimes goes in my favor. There are some like older judges that will see a woman and will kind of say, like, oh, let me have hold the door for you. And so like that's an interaction where I'm getting FaceTime that the men really wouldn't be. Um, but on the flip side, a lot of male attorneys will try to get you to mess up, or they specifically, I feel like the older generations.
Yeah.
Um, my dad's an attorney. Again, he laughs that I am actually going to be one, and he's like, never did I think that that was good, teacher to attorney. But he has noticed that men that are he's 50, and so a little bit older than him, around like 60s, that are still practicing,
Mhm.
or even like 58, really like the boomer generation, not necessarily I think it's like the I or like the me generation, like the boomers' children.
Yeah.
Um, they'll really try to mess with you, um, and see how flustered you can get, and then blame it on your emotions. And I have seen that quite often, specifically when it comes to Gen Z attorneys, not necessarily Gen X or like millennials, but definitely Gen Z attorneys. And I feel like, unfortunately, that trend's going to go when it comes to Gen Alpha that's coming in. Um, or Gen Beta now, right? Don't we have that too?
I think we're starting to get there. Not quite, but
Okay.
here's probably. Yeah.
So I think it's really just about, I stopped saying sorry a lot. I used to apologize for everything. And that really gave male attorneys and some older females that were more conservative, kind of runway to reprimand me for things that were just either not my fault, or that there was no reason for me to be apologizing. I was just more being polite. I learned other ways to be polite besides using the word sorry. And I think that's one of the biggest, words of advice that I can give a female attorney or anyone that's thinking about going into a male dominated field in general. Don't say sorry. You have nothing to be sorry about. If you did something wrong, apologize and then move on.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess going back, like really going back, when you were, let's say, between junior and high school to like sophomore in college, how do you get into law? Like you said that you were a teacher. I've heard like lawyer to teacher, but I've never heard teacher to lawyer. So just how do you do that?
Sure. So you got to go even further back. So, like, junior in high school, then go to like senior year of college,
Okay.
um, is when I made the switch. So I was actually wanting to be a physician, like a pediatric physician, until I was about a freshman in high school.
Hmm.
I really wanted to help kids. So I was like, of course, I want to be a doctor, I want to cure them. I shadowed a doctor while I was in high school, and I passed out when I saw blood. So they were like, hey, probably not for you. And he's like, cool, not for me. I ended up tutoring a lot of kids, and my mom suggested that I go into teaching. I wasn't so insulted by this at first, by the way. I ran upstairs, I cried. I was like, how dare you think that I would ever be a teacher making minimum wage? Are you kidding me? Um, and so I came out from my room and realized, hey, actually, that's not a bad idea. I think that would be everything that I would want. I get to be with kids, I get to help them. I'm also ADD and dyslexic, and I'm really open about it. I've had accommodations my whole life. And so helping kids advocate for themselves was something that I really enjoyed. So, of course, that was perfect. So then I was a direct admit into Indiana University School of Education.
Hmm.
I got to teach all 4 years of college. I loved it. My senior year, I ended up working at a Title I school, which there's a certain amount of students that need to be below the poverty line. And so when I would advocate for them to get the same assistance that I needed, or that other students needed, or that, basic human beings need when they just need to be tested, or they just need extra time, or they need food. And I would go home crying, thinking that my students weren't eating when they weren't with me. That was unhealthy. I needed to be able to separate that. But I was 22, 21 at the time, and really just needed to be able to separate myself, which I just did not have those skills yet. And then on top of it, being met with resistance every step of the way, trying to advocate for these kids, is when my dad and my mom asked me if I would want to be an attorney. I again was so insulted. How dare I not be a teacher? Right? I'm meant
Yeah.
to be a teacher. It's exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I spent 4 years of my life doing this. And then after a second, I was like, well, it's not a bad idea. I do like learning, and the advocacy part is really what I enjoyed. I enjoyed like stepping up for the kids, teaching them what their rights were. Um, you know, my classroom was really about trust between kids. They shouldn't have to ask to go to the bathroom. They never had to ask me for extra time. They never had to ask me for a snack. I was very open. And so that part of it was what drew me to law, was watching all of these kids not be advocated for.
Wow, so it's really like the advocating spirit that you had as a teacher, and then you just found out a better way to apply it in a more official way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What were your like battles with the administration like?
A good way to explain it is how I'm met now, because I've sued schools now, and then how I previously was met by the administration. So now when I go and I talk to a school and I send a demand letter, I am met with, well, usually they want to settle because they don't want the publicity, right? It was a discrimination case, and it was actually a Jewish student that was being discriminated against.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and they were kicked off the team. Little do they know I was Jewish, and so I took it personally. And so when I sent the demand letter, I'm, citing to all of these laws that they're violating, including the fact that they violated the ADA, which is the American Disabilities Act. That is something that I know a lot about just because I've always had a 504. And so once they saw that, I was immediately called, I think the day after they were served the demand. They immediately wanted to meet with me in the firm. Um, they shook our hand when they walked in. They were incredibly apologetic and immediately settled. It was handled. The student was given everything that they could have possibly asked for and more
Hmm.
without any sort of back and forth or arguing about it. It was just an apology, and they did what needed to be done. Now, when I was a teacher and they actually had a duty to me as a teacher and as a, employee at the school, everything was always scrutinized. Well, what do you mean this kid needs help? How do you know that? Well, I have all this documentation that I'm taking and all of these notes about this kid that I've been taking for 4 or 5 months. And I'm really concerned and I think that they need help. What can I do to help them? I think you need to take more notes. I think you need to sit there and, maybe call the parents. Well, I've already called the parents and they don't have the funds to go get testing. So is there a way that we can do that? I know that the school receives federal funding for this. No, I think you need more documentation. Okay, I go back and I take more documentation, and still the child is falling behind. He's losing friends because he's lashing out because he doesn't understand the work. So I'm going back to the administration. Hey, I really think this kid needs help. I'm really concerned that they're going to fall behind. We're in fourth grade. This is a big, fifth. The jump from fifth to fourth grade, I feel like, is really big. I feel like fifth to sixth is fairly small, but fourth to fifth, you're starting to read much larger chapter books, and it was reading comprehension that was really concerning.
Hmm.
So I take more documentation, I come back to the administration. No, we actually don't have the funds. Yes, you do. I know that you have the funds because you receive funds for kids that are below the poverty line. So why are you not helping them? I was then reprimanded for questioning the administration's use of funds. And that was exactly when I decided that it wasn't for me.
Wow. And that's what you're doing now with the Austin School District, or you want to represent?
DISD. Yeah.
Yeah.
So trying to prevent um DISD I'm using as an externship because it's a nonprofit. So
Mhm.
uh, you have to have an externship in law school or a clinic. I don't want to do criminal law, and our clinic is for inmates. I'm I've done I took a year in between undergrad and law school, and I worked at four different law firms, one of which was a criminal defense firm. And I, as much as I appreciated the experience,
Yeah.
I don't think that's for me. So I decided to do GISD because it's trying to prevent them from violating those laws that they must abide by and making sure that they're using the funding for what it's being given for, making sure that they don't get sued. And so I'll be doing that this semester where I'll get to kind of advise on that. And then at the firm, that was just a one of many cases. We're a full service litigation firm, so I do everything.
Wow. So it's almost like your job will be to make up, like to find all the places where they can get sued and like mock sue them beforehand so they can fix the things.
Yep, and that's exactly what most general counsels do. If there's actually like a ton of literature about it too, like online and everything. Like, what is a general counsel? It's everyone and anything that you could possibly have a potential question that you maybe want to get answered potentially, but like it's not really happening quite yet. And you ask the general counsel, and the general counsel hopes that it's actually a like a
Like a maybe question.
like a maybe question versus
No.
when it usually is that it already happened. And specifically for like companies or I, for example, let's say like a shoe company, they
Mhm.
have general counsel, and let's say they hypothetically maybe sort of stole someone else's shoe design. They're gonna go to general counsel and say, hey, what if I sort of possibly saw a shoe in store and I thought that our brand would look really great on that shoe, and so I made that shoe, it got approved, and like it maybe sort of kind of might be in production. What would happen? General counsel is going to say to you, well, so like you didn't do that, right? And they're going to say, yeah, no, I didn't do that, right? Okay, so like if you
Yeah.
did that, you would get sued for copyright infringement. Oh, right. So I did do that. So I think that we're going to have to pull those designs. So then it's general counsel's job to help pull those designs so they don't actually go out. Because nine times out of 10, the people that you're representing are going to ask you a hypothetical that actually is happening right then and there.
Wow, that seems so like kind of sixth grade, but I imagine I guess it works. So
I mean, really, adults are just really old sixth graders when you think about it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Do you find that your experience from teaching helps you in the courtroom, in like the business world, like in law?
incredibly so. I definitely lean towards litigation because I like hearing myself talk. That's why teaching was perfect for me. Um, but then also the having to be prepared is essentially like making a lesson plan, but it's for a jury of seven versus a classroom of 30, and they're adults over the age of 18 versus minors that are, anywhere from K to sixth grade. And it's about someone's livelihood, or I do a lot of class action stuff versus someone that, um, they need to learn about their feelings. I'm actually teaching them about, oh, this is a medical device that failed, and so it killed somebody, and this is why the company needs to be held liable. And I'm really good at breaking things down for anybody to understand because even a second grader can understand, right? So using that in the courtroom with a jury is something that I kind of have a niche ability to do. And in fact, that's how one of my employers started me on a class action because they didn't know how to explain this very complicated medical device, but they knew that it was bad, just not how to explain everything that they had learned to someone that has no idea what's going on.
Wow. So are you drawn to trial courts because of their juries, or do you find to be both in like appellate courts and trial courts?
That's a really good question. I think I'm drawn to both. I was actually asked that so I tried out for moot court and mock trial at the same time, and then they kind of get to see like where you place best.
Mhm.
And they ended up having to ask me where I wanted to go first. So I decided on moot court because I like that I had more time to prepare, but I like both for different reasons. One, you're arguing about facts because you're the fact finder in trial court. And it's just, you never know what a witness is going to say because you can prep them all you want and they're going to mess up. But also, that's like teaching
Yeah.
where I can prep my lesson plan as much as I wanted. And no matter what, it's not going to go how I said it was. So I'm really good on my feet. But then in appellate court, I'm arguing about the law. And I really like arguing about the law because I know what it is and I know how to advocate for someone like that. So it's just different forms of advocacy. But I do tend to lean more towards trial when it comes to arguing about the facts. And then the appellate court is the challenge that you can't bring up new facts, but there's a way to turn a fact into a law issue. And that's kind of where it gets fun.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned that you had a year between, so you're not K to JD because you had this year like in the middle where you did a bunch of legal things. How do you get those legal jobs like after undergraduate?
So I graduated undergrad. I went on a trip with my sorority sisters to Italy and Greece for a month. Then I came back and started studying for the LSAT. Well, just like now, where I like to work while I also do school because I don't like free time,
Mhm.
I decided that, and with help from my dad and some other attorneys too, that it would be best for me to see as many different law practices as possible because I would be leaving teaching for good and entering a whole entire new career. So figuring out whether that career was really what I wanted to do was what was most important. So I did a couple of things. The first thing I did was actually help somebody. So there was an attorney that reached out to really networking is like the short answer. The long answer is this one. Um, Someone needed help. She was having brain surgery and she was an attorney and it was a solo practitioner and she did bankruptcy law. I cried every day at that job because I was in a closet and I was alone and it was my first legal job ever. And I had no idea what I was doing. I learned a lot about bankruptcy and I will never, ever, 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 ever do it. But it taught me a lot. And that was where I learned to not say sorry. So then I ended up the same person that had referred me to work for the person that was having brain surgery asked if I would work, heard that I was doing good work and asked if I would work for their criminal defense firm. I was
Mhm.
like, anything to get out of this job, absolutely. I will go work for you at your criminal defense firm. I learned a lot there, got to see a lot of evidence, how to sift
What
through
are you
evidence
working as at these firms? Like as a paralegal
as a
or
paralegal.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, as a paralegal. So I ended up going to the criminal defense firm. Then my dad wanted to be the last. He wanted me to learn before I started working for him because he was like, I'm not teaching you how to file. You can learn how to file from somebody else. So I was like,
Yeah.
great. So I went into my dad's firm, and he has a title company attached to his firm that's his as well. So it's about 17 employees. I started at the very bottom. I worked about I think 12 hours a day. It was the hardest job I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
Um, and I ended up becoming the lead paralegal. So I earned it very much so. But I got to do some JP cases with him, which is justice of the peace. And if you really want to cut your teeth on something, you don't need to be an attorney to represent someone in JP court. So that's also something
Yeah.
kind of cool. Um, so I got to do that before law school. And then a judge asked if I wanted to, who I had met through, there was a they were running for something. It was an election year. And I wanted to go and meet other attorneys. So I went alone. Um, I think it was like in a suit that I had, it was my only suit that I'd ever had, and I put it on begrudgingly. And I went and I met the judge, and he asked if I wanted to learn about receiverships. And I said, Sure. So I worked two jobs at the same time. I worked for my dad and I worked for a receiver that worked for the judge and learned about that at another law firm as well. So I worked four jobs and then took the LSAT and then got into law school and then worked all throughout that summer. And then I started.
Wow. So I guess a lot of people assume that when you work at like a parent's company or someone in your family, a lot of people assume that like there's a lot of nepotism going on and you're instantly put into like positions. But I think
I
people
really wish.
don't people don't often assume, and I think it happens more that like your family knows you better than you know yourself. So they'll give you the hard cases and they know you'll have a hard time with it. And it's like to help you learn and stuff. So
Absolutely.
yeah. How was your experience? Like, how did you get into paralegaling? How do you get into that field?
So a lot of people don't know this. Well, because I'm neurotic and I searched everything that I possibly could, so that I could figure out if I actually wanted to go into the legal field. So because I had my bachelor in science and education, I
Mhm.
didn't need to go to paralegal school. You don't need a certificate to be a paralegal. Some bigger firms require it, but you are already overqualified to be a paralegal if you have a bachelor's degree. You are already overqualified. You do not need one, especially if you want to go to law school. Like your end goal isn't to be a career paralegal.
Mhm.
So I ended up looking online and finding out that I didn't need to go to paralegal school. I didn't need to get that certificate. And so the second day that I got home from Greece, I took the job and ended up working my way to be the lead paralegal, which earned me more experience and then more name recognition. And then it kind of snowballed.
Wow, so it's really like anyone can be a paralegal. Like considering that they have probably a minimal criminal record and some educational experience, like really anyone can be a paralegal.
So it depends. After high school, if you only have a um, high school diploma, you can go and get a paralegal certificate, which is like a couple classes, and it's costs some money, but really you just learn how to file, kind of like the legal jargon, stuff like that. And then it's just testing like, can you learn, right? And then you earn a
Mhm.
certificate, and then you can become a paralegal. Mhm. And then if you don't do that, let's say you have no idea that you want to go into law school, like me. And then you end up going and through all 4 years, have no idea. And then want to go into law school, you are already overqualified to be a paralegal because you have a bachelor of something. You've done something for 4 years, you can show that you've learned, and so you're qualified to be a paralegal. So the LSAT is stupidest, worst test ever. It teaches you absolutely, I can't say this enough, and I can't yell it enough at people that are going to take it. It teaches you absolutely nothing that is applicable to law school. And it's truly just a hurdle for them to be mean and make you take a test to prove that you're worthy. I mean, it's really just it's if it was up to a vote, I would say that that is not a helpful test at all and that it should be done away with. No one has ever asked me what my LSAT score was. It genuinely doesn't matter. And unless you get a 180 out of 180,
Mhm.
no one will care. Absolutely no one. If you get a 180 out of 180, though, absolutely, you deserve to celebrate, take a shot. Like that is yours to do. But if it's not a 180 out of 180, or I guess the L Wood, if you get a 175 and you can yell it like Elle Woods, then I'll kind of get it too, because Elle Woods is the queen. But the LSAT, I got accommodations for it. It's really difficult to do. If
Mhm.
you didn't use accommodations in high school, I highly recommend you getting retested by a psychiatrist, and they will give you documentation because how my brain works, right? I need extra time. But if I didn't get that, I would have not gotten a score good enough because people are always like, did you pass the LSAT? you can't fail the LSAT either. You
Yeah.
just like won't get into the right school. So it's kind of like a test with you can't lose anything. You're not failing, but there's also a score that some people would like shoot for. I was going for my best. And something I really learned in law school is comparison is the thief of joy. They will pin you against each other. Don't don't listen. I don't share my scores anymore. I used to say like, "Oh yeah, I got this," or like, "Oh yeah, I got this." It never made me feel good.
Wow,
It
comparison is the thief of joy. It's a very beautiful quote.
thanks. It is. It really is. It's something that in law school you are highly competitive. So my neurotic brain and how I think is, "Oh my God, we need to talk about this all the time." And I'm super extroverted too, so like I want to talk all the time. You will find your group. People that I'm around, it has helped me though, because people that I'm around you kind of like find your people. UNT though we have a really close class. I can't say that for like every single class, but ours specifically is incredibly close. So I could ask anybody in there for notes and they would give it to me. But I do have my study
Yeah.
group who is just as neurotic and quirky as me, and we work really well together. You'll also find that at firms too. So I have worked at four of them, and then I also like before law school, and so I kind of figured out like what I liked, what I didn't like. And so I found that what I look for in a firm is getting feedback. Firms won't always do that. And know that it's not a you problem, it's their problem. So if they're not giving you feedback and you have to ask for it all the time, it's not really helpful. So I really valued that. So you find your people and kind of mesh well together. And if you don't like the firm that you're at, that's also okay. It's just another rec letter that you can use to find the firm that you like.
Yeah. What's the like structure at firms? Like let's say you're a paralegal. Do you have like a manager? Do you have someone who's like overseeing you? Or
So I, it depends on the firm. So like the solo practitioner, I was the lead paralegal, and so there was one other paralegal with me. She was also the receptionist. And then we had a financial accountant. She kind of was in her own bubble, and then we had the attorney. So there was no, it's not like a pyramid in a sense. It's more like in chess where like you kind
yeah.
of are all standing next to each other and one's like a little taller than the other, but no one's below. Everyone's next to. I found that there are some firms, especially large firms. I'm not someone, first of all, if you can get into big law and that's your shtick, go for it. I'm never going to be someone that's going to advocate for anyone going into big law, mostly because if you can pay off loans other ways by getting litigation and actually being in the courtroom and getting experience so that you can ramp up your resume if you want to go do that. I have already been a paralegal, and I found that first year associates at big law firms just do what I did. Just they paid over 100 grand to go do
Yeah.
what I already did. So I had no interest in doing big law. But how I understand it is that you have your receptionists, which always make friends with the receptionist and always make friends with court clerks because they get paid absolutely nothing to do absolutely everything. That's a tip, and it's boded well for me so far. So you have your receptionists, and then you have um, paralegals, then you have lead paralegals, then you have first year associates, then you have associates, then you have senior associates, and then you have no, yes, then you have equity partners, and then you have named partners.
Okay, so named partners would be like the person on the like Cohen and Brothers or like something like that. I'm thinking of
Yeah,
Suits, but I
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So you have like a firm and then it's really like in that case you would have like the named partner and they've got like 14 paralegals and 12 associates running around them, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we kind of all, again, at bigger firms, I suppose it would be kind of spoke, in a pyramid where it's a hierarchy going down. But at smaller firms or mid-sized firms, I've found it to be more so like holding hands, and we're all just a little bit shorter than the other ones, and kind of all getting there. Also, always listen to your paralegal. They will know more than you. They do. And you rely on them, and you should give them all of the bonuses always because they do know more
Yeah.
than you. Yeah, attorney. Also, your citations don't really matter. I mean, they do, and they matter for me because it's like a matter of pride. And if you can look up your case on the internet and you find it, then it's a good site. It even if it doesn't abide by the blue book and the green book, and they're gonna drill it into you, and it really does matter if you're, you know, a first year or second year attorney and you want to impress your boss. My boss has explicitly told me that I do not care.
What's the
And
difference
I do
between
not.
Blue Book and Green Book?
So the green book is for Texas law. Each state should have like their own. And then the green book is federal, or the green book is state law, so Texas here, and then the blue book is federal, and
Okay.
it's
So
education.
I imagine there's a lot of colors in the United States.
I
Or
hope so. I hope it's like a whole rainbow.
maybe that would be fun. I guess just as a sort of closing remark, what advice would you give to someone who's not sure if they want to go into law? They're not sure if they want to do this. They might have some internal characteristics that they think will prevent them from doing the reading or doing whatever. What advice would you give to someone in this like age range and this range of uncertainty?
It's high school, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to know now. You absolutely, there is time. If you think that you might want to go into law, find any attorney, literally anybody. Go on LinkedIn. You can ask me. You can ask literally anybody, any attorney. And if they don't know somebody, they'll know somebody that knows somebody, and shadow them. See if you like the office environment and try different ones, because there are some office environments that you might not like. But if you like what you're seeing,
Mhm.
or you like kind of the work that's being done, do it. But it'll also prevent you from doing work that you don't like. Like, I know I will never go into bankruptcy, but I absolutely know that I want to be a plaintiff's attorney and I want to do full service. So talk to people, put yourself out there. Also, I mean, if you're in school and you have like a religious group or what have you, there are so many attorneys out there that you might not even know exist because they don't necessarily flaunt it, right? So ask, someone will know an attorney, shadow them, ask if you can brief a case. What I would say not to do is stress. You don't need to know what you're doing right now, but if you do know, or you think that you might know, it's going to be okay. Don't freak out. Attorneys can be fun, but go talk to people. And then when it comes to like if something's going to prevent you from doing it, I promise you, if I can do it and if some other people that I know in my class can do it, anybody can. You just have to want to. That's kind of where it comes into play. Knowing your why, like why do you want to be here, is really important. So, um, anybody can be an attorney. Being a good attorney is what sets people apart, but anybody can be an attorney.